Jason,
Hey,
hey,
how's it going, Malcolm?
good. I'm sorry I'm 2 minutes late. I was on another call.
Interviews, huh? You always have to do that.
Yeah, you do your best. You keep it going. Actually, it's been fairly easy going with John Lappin. He's kind of gone easy on me, like maybe two or three a day, that kind of thing. So it's not been too extreme, uh, at least over the last few days. But anyway, how are you?
Very good. Malcolm Bruce, pleasure to be talking to you and listening also to your new album. Sounds great. Heavenly,
Fantastic, Jason.
the, the sound that you hear out of it, it's viewed differently, from the originals. That's the way
Oh,
I'm.
absolutely.
I'm liking it from what I'm hearing.
Cool. Well, appreciate that. Yeah, I have no idea what it sounds like. I'm just way too subjective at this point.
Okay.
um, but I know that we have, we put a lot of love into the whole process, and we had some amazing artists with us. It's a funny thing, like because it's my dad's band and all of that. I guess I'm, you know, I'm so close to it all. But I'm glad you like it.
Oh, I love it. It's like a new vibe to it. It's I like it. It's different and it's cream at the same time. And
Yeah, I mean,
everybody that is playing on it sounds great. Amazing players you've got.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a nice way of looking at it. I've talked about this a lot. The cream, there's so much potential within the music. It can always be fresh. It's that kind of music that is malleable. It can shift around depending on how you want to approach it. I mean, I suppose like all great music, you can arrange it in so many different ways. You can play it, and with this music, you can play it heavy. You can play it like rock music or blues rock or whatever, but you can also strip it down to this a much more intimate approach. So I think that was the premise of this record. um Everything needs to be acoustic, but
Mhm.
it's not quiet acoustic necessarily. It's still got a groove.
How long,
um
how long did you work on it? Like it must have taken a lot of time.
yeah, I mean, we started the process about 5 years ago, but we didn't the recording itself was a pretty quick process. But the once we you know once Pete Brown, the cream lyricist who passed away earlier this year, he was really spearheading the whole project. um and once he'd cut the deal with the record label, we started reaching out to all the artists. And that was a process, uh, that sort of process takes a while. Like, who's going to come on board? Some people come on board straight away. Other people are a little harder to secure, depending on their availability and all that kind of stuff. So that took a while, and then we hit the studio sometime like halfway through 2018. I think we started, and then we would just do a day here, a day there, or a few days in a row in Abbey Road. As and when people were available. So, we weren't in the studio for months. It was I can't even remember, 2 weeks or, something like that, 2, 3 weeks of complete, uh, really, and the approach we took was that kind of conventional approach, like get everybody in the room, throw the mics up, get a great sound and record with minimal overdubs. We did do, we fixed things or did lead vocals as overdubs or whatever, but essentially we tracked as a band. So I think when you take that approach, rather than, okay, we're going to play the guitar, but we're going to have each string of the chords separately on a separate track, or just do the hi-hat, or just one instrument at a time. When you actually just get everybody in a room in the way that music conventionally exists, people interacting, then it's just done. And then two or three takes, we're like, okay, that sounds good. We like that as the basis of the record. And then what do we need to do to complete it? So when you take that approach, it can be quite a quick process to get it done.
releasing an album, you know, in 2023 is still like the same as it was releasing 20 years ago. It's like you got to do publicity, you got to master it, you got to maybe make a promo video for it, you know, because the visual is as important. What
Yes.
do you look at it for, you know, making all this happen?
Well, I mean, we were fortunate. We shot a documentary, a making of documentary during the process of making the album. So that really helps. That's available to stream. I think it's on Sunstream at the moment. So people can actually watch a sort of feature length documentary about the record and with interviews and all kinds of things. So that's sort of our promo, I guess, rather than music videos. We do have a few things going along. We've released a couple of singles leading up to the album being released. The first one was Sunshine of Your Love with Joe Bonamassa and Ginger Baker, and Bernie Marsden, myself, and Neil Murray on bass and Abbas Dodo on percussion. And then the second was White Room, sung by Pete Brown himself and with Bernie Marsden and myself. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting, that whole process. I think this particular project is a little bit different. I mean, I'm in the middle of making my own next record, and that's going to be out next year. And so it'll be much more that kind of traditional, okay, I'm going to release video singles and I'm going to work with the agents and book tours and just kind of hit the thing now, hit the whole market in that sense and build something up. And I think we're doing something similar with this record, but we don't have the touring entity so much because we've actually lost quite a few of the core musicians have passed away since the record came, you know, before the record came out. So we're not able to go on the road unless we get some holograms or something. So I think for this particular thing, it's more just that we know that there's a market for Cream's music, that a lot of people love Cream. And we're getting such good feedback so far about the record, you know, so I think we're just hoping that people love it, you know, and listen to it. And you know, it just, you know, it ties into that market, classic rock or whatever it's called. So
it's also timeless, the music, you know.
Yes,
it's as fresh today as it was, you know, in '68.
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting that even now the Rolling Stones released a record and it's the top record in the world, and then the Beatles release a kind of sort of single assisted a little bit by AI or whatever, but it's still a Beatles single and based on one of John's songs. So, and it's the biggest thing in the world. So I mean, it's just interesting that that collection of musicians from the 60s is still so vital 60 years later, that people love it. All generations love it. You're right. You're absolutely right. I think there is a timeless element to all great music. Mozart, you know, Beethoven, like people still love that, you know, Puccini. I don't know. I mean, all great music seems to transcend the time it came from. And, you know, as we've talked about, we're sort of reinterpreting Cream's songs in a fresh kind of way. And I think that also shines a light on it. It kind of validates what we're saying, that it's able to be reborn, you know, and continues. So yeah, I think it's really exciting that music has that vitality and it's able to continue.
It's just eternal music, it seems, because it's the notes are like free flowing. They always jive together, and it's nothing that you've heard from anybody else do, you know. And it was done by Cream, let's say. And like when you just mentioned John Lennon too, you know, he records a song, puts it away because it's maybe not a good song that he would consider, but his like recycled song end up being #1 hit single, you know, later on. So what's going on with that?
It's a feel. I studied classical music, and I continue to study, like, you know, music from an intellectual, academic, you know, from a harmony, counterpoint, all of those kinds of technical things that us kind of serious musicians study. But when you get down to it, all of that stuff is also about feel. It's about feeling your way through something. It's touch. There's a physicality to it. It's not in the head. It can't be. To touch people, it has to also be this kind of physical sensation. And I think that it doesn't matter what genre it is, whether it's Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan singing Qawwali music, as a Sufi, or whether it's, Elvis, or whether it's Cream or the Beatles, or classical music or jazz or Coltrane or whatever, it's all the same thing. We get really hung up on division and difference, but that's because we're experiencing things on a superficial level of the hierarchy. At the root of everything, it's completely unified, in the same way that we're bombing and killing each other all over the world, when actually we're all the same race. With the human race, there's no difference at the root of us. We're one thing. And I think with music, it's the same thing. If we look at it from one perspective, we say, oh, that doesn't fit that, or that's not, you can't do that. And I think that maybe one of the things that made my dad special in that sense was that he understood that. He was wide open as a musician. So he didn't have those hang-ups. And I think it's kind of ironic, isn't it, that we're 60 years on from the time of the hippies and everyone having that little opening where people thought a little differently. But now we're all even more uptight. We're all really hung up on what's right and what's wrong and good and bad and all these kind of dualistic concepts. And I think maybe that's partly what's attractive about that music from that time and the people from that time, is because there was that little moment where they went, hey man, maybe we can just let all of that stuff, put that to one side for a minute and let's just be, and what would art be like? What could we touch something perhaps a bit more on the level of the infinite, or a bit more on the level of unity, if we just put all our hang-ups to one side for a moment, and I think, and whether it's a kind of extra musical concept that somehow influenced the choices that those people made in the moment, perhaps it was. And I think all of these sort of things interest me as an artist, in all humility, as I'm kind of developing my own music. I'm thinking, well, where does that music come from? Am I trying to sell something in a market? Will the corporations like me? Like, that's the thing, isn't it? Where is stuff coming from? Where is the authenticity in art? And I think that is the fundamental question, perhaps could be the fundamental question. Or maybe, where is the authenticity in the human spirit? Where is the authenticity in the communication between people? And what are the things we are basing our values on, that bring us together rather than divide us up? And I think, Cream as an example, it's music that's kind of universal in its appeal, and it's super simple music. There's a great quote, actually on my dad's Facebook page today, they posted a quote from Eddie Van Halen, who's my dad's friend and drinking buddy. But Eddie said something like, oh, that music, man, it's just two chords. But what Jack Bruce did within those two chords was astonishing. And I think that Eddie had really understood that. And I think we can understand that. It's the simplest music. Like all great music, it's simple, but it's what you do within that simplicity. It's how you move from one note to the next that's novel, or somehow brings something fresh and unique. What do you do with that simplicity? It's not obvious. As you say, it's like on the outside, it's just one chord to the next chord. But inside of that, there's something so unique and about feeling and about emotion. It's hard to really put into words. I don't know whether I'm doing okay at putting it into words. I have no idea, but I mean, it's just, it's, to me, it's being reborn. It's ever evolving, this music that we share. And I think other forms of music at the moment tend to be a bit more rigid. And I think that rigidity can affect our consciousness, can affect how we live our lives, how we see the world. And so from that sort of perspective, not without wanting to sound too pretentious, I think music can really affect people's lives, and it can really open them up or close them down, control them, or give them a sense of infinite possibility. So yeah, I mean, I'm a bit emotional at the moment because I see people bombing each other when it's completely unnecessary. So I'm thinking, what could we all do to stop that crazy behavior? Like, why is that happening? And is there something that artists can do in a very, very simple way to express that peacefulness, that sharing, that togetherness, that sense of togetherness rather than a sense of division? And I think maybe music does have the power to do that. I don't know. I hope it does somewhere.
Make another peace festival, something like that. It
yeah,
message. But
yeah,
also in music, it could be that economies drift and go up, and people's mind look at music differently. Henceforth, for the people that do number one hit singles every different year, that the styles are different, like pop, hip hop.
Yeah.
And you go to the 1970s and it's like different number one singles, or in the top 10, I should say, the artists on the top list. So however people are feeling in the decade, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I guess punk, there's some amazing music in punk, and that was like a reaction within the times, wasn't it? It was like, right. Okay, we're gonna make a kind of social statement because we're fed up with all these people, with the kind of pretentiousness of the world. And so we're going to do something that's the opposite of pretentious. It's like people that aren't even musicians picking up instruments saying, screw you, don't tell us what to do. We're going to just be expressive. And it's not about high art or being clever or whatever. It's actually about just going, I'm going to take back ownership of my life and my creative expression. So, I mean, I think even just from that kind of philosophical perspective, it was a really healthy thing to happen, even if some of the music was a little bit whatever, it was still an essential thing to happen. So yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like that, Heavenly Cream. What do we see for, coming next for this, to keep stuff going?
Well, I think we're just going to keep pushing this record out there over the next few months. We really hope people will listen to it. You can buy the CD, you can do a download. There's a double LP as well for people that like the vinyl thing. And then, I mean, I've got, as I say, I've got my own record coming out next year, so that'll be a whole new thing. So I'm kind of in my own way keeping my sort of lineage with my dad alive. Okay. So that's going on. So I'll be touring in the States and Canada and wherever. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the record label Quarto Valley will decide what to do with this record. But at the moment, we're just doing lots of publicity and talking to people about it and getting it out there and hoping people like it. So there you go.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to you, and great product. I'll just put it like that because it sounds great.
Thank you. Well, thanks for your interest. We really appreciate it.
Well, I hope you have a good night. I'm sure it's pretty late where you are at. Right now it's 5:51 where I'm at. So
yeah, it's 10 p.m. Coming up to 10 p.m. It's my bedtime for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
To talk to you, man.
Well, you have a good night, Malcolm.
Yeah, take it easy. Cheers.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.